Bitcoin crash. Can Bitcoin and blockchain recover from the crash underway right now as we speak? So I've been involved in some endeavors in my life that remind me an awful lot of Bitcoin and blockchain, and I'm going to take you through just a couple of them and let you see how it played out. These two endeavors may not remind you any of blockchain, but they're very similar in that they went through a bubble model, just like this one that Dr. Rodrigo from Hofstra University has created, and I've seen it time and time again. The very first bubble I saw in this situation was about 30 years ago. There was a movement down in the south where I'm from to grow mayhaw trees. Mayhaw trees have been grown here since the days of Native Americans, and people in the area have harvested the mayhaws and made mayhaw jelly off of them, and there's plenty of benefits from mayhaw, particularly cardiovascular benefits. So there was a movement about 30 years ago to grow these mayhaw trees, and the movement was going to be such that one of the main jelly companies would start taking these mayhaws and growing them and producing them, and it was going to be great for everyone in the area. So mayhaw kind of was down here in the stealth phase, I guess you could say, for a few thousand years until it got some interest, and people started planting mayhaw trees on their farms. People started harvesting mayhaw trees. It got a little media attention, and people started harvesting mayhaws and selling them in different little avenues, and companies were built up, and there was a greed deal, and everybody had to have mayhaw trees, and you could buy mayhaw trees and pay a premium for something that used to just grow out in the wild. And eventually mayhaw bubble busted and it crashed, and it went down to this area here. Now today mayhaws are back to where they used to be, where people their families grow mayhaws and make jelly for the families. Very little is actually sold out in the open market, and it never made it big. Well, the reason mayhaw failed right around in this area is because there was not enough mayhaw to satisfy a national jelly company. These national jelly companies would come in here, food companies would come in here and look at the mayhaw and say that there's no way that you can produce enough mayhaw to support a national distribution for this jelly. So since there was tremendous liking of it here in the area, but there wasn't enough production, it failed to get to this level and run back up. And that's a little bit of my fear with blockchain technology. Is somewhat limited. Bitcoin is limited. The mining ability is somewhat limiting it, and it's one of those things. On paper, blockchain looks really, really good, but when you start looking at how much of the world's trade could it actually take on, is it something that could actually be in the play to replace some of these world currencies? And right now, the way the technology is being handled or being managed, that is a bit of an issue. Now, not saying that blockchain can't be changed and we can't manage it a little bit differently, and then all of a sudden blockchain does move on up. But in the case with the mayhaw, we couldn't figure out a way to grow mayhaw trees faster and quicker, and that was the bottleneck. So until Bitcoin gets a little bit better at that, it's gonna probably be a bottleneck to growth. The second business I went in that was very much like Bitcoin in the sense that it went through a bubble like this was emu farming. The first pair of emu, which is a bird that looks kind of like an ostrich if you're not familiar with it, we paid $18,000 for the male and the female. We could sell chicks, 3-month-old chicks, for $3,000, and eggs would go for $1,000. We were kind of in this area right here. Emu started falling, and people went through the same thing, fear, capitulation and all, and we kept looking at it that cheap was about as good as it could get. We found out cheap could be a lot cheaper, and cheap could be a lot cheaper. So on the way down, paid $18,000 for our first birds. We started buying more. Then we paid $8,000 for a set of birds, $5,000 for a set of birds, and so forth. And we kept buying as the market went down, kept buying as the market went down, kept thinking that cheap was as cheap as it could get. But we sooner found out that cheap could get a lot cheaper all the way down to this level here. Ultimately, we ended up with about 100 birds, and we were convinced that these things were good, much like people was convinced that blockchain is good. The reason we were convinced that emu were good is it's a low-fat meat, it's 100% organic. You don't have to have pesticides, you don't have to have antibiotics. The oil has some unique properties, the leather is superior. So everything we looked at, we were like, why would emu not do good compared to pork or beef? And to this day, it still makes sense to me, kind of like blockchain makes an awful lot of sense to me. So what happened was very much like the Mayhaw, is there was not enough emu farmers around to create enough supply to meet the potential demand. So no major international or national meat buyers or food companies would step in to start processing the emu meat to take it on to carry it national or ultimately international, which again is where my main concern with blockchain is. When you look at all the benefits of it, blockchain is good, but it's going to have to become more efficient so that it doesn't end up like emu, or doesn't end up like Mayhaw, some of these other things I've been involved in, where you had inefficiencies and you just absolutely couldn't produce enough supply to meet demand, so it gets shut down. Biggest issue with blockchain is, can blockchain overcome that hurdle? The market's going to eventually decide if this is going to be a good deal or not. I think right now the biggest issue with Bitcoin is we're dropping here, and I'm fine with that because I'm not in a position. I'm fine with that. I see this bubble. I know what's happening. We're in fear. We're going to go to capitulation. We're going to go to despair. My only issue is, once we get to the despair, is blockchain technology going to be viable enough to take us up? I think blockchain technology has some wonderful aspects. It's just, are we going to get it to where it's efficient enough for it to become a player on the world economic theater? And if it does, then blockchain will continue to go back up here. But if it doesn't, it may die that slow death. So I'm putting together a PDF of my complete trading system. It has taken me over 2 decades to develop this system. So you'll want to keep checking in with this channel to make sure that you can snatch up this PDF just as soon as it becomes available. I will also keep making new videos each day. So like and subscribe. Be sure to ding that bell so that you can get notified when I come out with a new video. In trading, you must train yourself to be like the lion. Most people do business and trade like a scared gazelle. Train yourself to be like the lion. Dominate your domain. Analyze, educate, and when it's time to take care of business, you take care of business. Remember, if you don't kill it, your family doesn't eat. This is Blake Storm, SniperInvestor.com.